Hi there, everyone. It is Kristi. It is Sunday, and that means it is time for WKND. How are you doing? Well, first of all, hello to my new digs. And let me say hi to the people in the chat. So I've got a new setup here in multiple directions, so where I'm looking might change a little bit in the course of the week or so. But anyway, I want to say hello to A to the K. Also, Michael Mistaken is there, and Neo Ripshaft. How y'all doing? I see we have some fun people in the chat already today, upset at the idea that white people might be a little bit racist, given our history as Americans. Anyway, I hope you all are having a fun Sunday. And before we start with my rant, I've got a new setup here. I don't know if you guys have noticed, I've got a new series called Trailer Trash or Treasure, which I'm going to be recording, hopefully, some episodes of that right after I finish this. It also, I know there are some very passionate Godzilla fans who want to see the original Japanese trailer, which I previewed, and I can say is much better than the American original trailer that was put out for the film. Also got a recommendation on some amazing trailer that I wanted to check out. So that should be fun. And yeah, I'm aiming to put out at least 1 or 2 episodes a week. I'm still testing it out. Still, what's the word? Finding the mode of the piece. I'm finding the energy. And also, I wanted to change my setup. So yeah, you guys can all vote. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, Sib. So do people have a preference? So let's do some, so you look at the back lighting there. I got in some very cheap black velvet to make the background look a bit more interesting than the quilts that I handmade. But here's a spring blossom option if you'd like me to be lit in this way. Here's tropical twilight. I'll turn that up a little bit. Ooh, that's a very fun one. Very fun. What else we got? Blue Lagoon. I'm whacking all of these up to maximum colors, maximum brightness. That looks like fun. How about Osaka? Very, very bisexual. It is the classic pink and purple combo of YouTube. And what's this one? Aurora Lights. Very green. So I don't know. Skin tone is off? Okay, hold on, let me I can check this, because I've only basically got 3 colors when it comes to skin tone. Orange yellow, which is like club lighting. I've got this one, which, no, that's not the same, this one, that one. So I've got basically blue, orange, and slightly orange. So what do you guys prefer? Because I've been told the tungsten lighting is best, because otherwise it gets too yellow. Hello, Po Mama Sid, good to see you. Also, I need to look, okay, I can put you all on screen. That might make more sense. 2 camera, large screen. There we go. All right. So we're going to have a little chat this morning. Nice color contrast. Glad you all like it. Hold on, let me just look. I actually look down, but this is close enough. So what do y'all, skin tone, is that a little bit more balanced? I feel like I'm slightly pink. I feel like I'm the color of a drunken dwarf in D&D, not I feel like that color coloring. So your options again are, I'll go through it again. I'll read them off. Blue. This is what I normally will put on because, again, yellowing light. That's orange. And that's a slight orange. Blue makes you look sickly. Okay, good to know. So do you guys prefer the middle one? This is the middle choice. This is the not purely yellow and not purely blue. So what do y'all think? I don't, so the thing is, I don't have access to like the webcam. I don't like the auto settings. I tried looking for the settings for the webcam. I can't find like an app in my phone my app in my computer to adjust the desktop webcam settings. So, all right. So y'all like this color better. All right. I feel like I'm green. Yeah, let me show you on a bigger screen. I'll just do the big, here we go. See, now I feel like I look green in this. I think I look sickly here. So it depends on how close you are to the light. Wonderful. Because here, this is the one for the show, right, that I record in. And I usually use this lighting here, which is the bluest light I have. So, yeah. Anyway, all right, we're getting way too distracted on this lighting thing. But for the moment, I'll put it on this and see how it goes. All right. So how y'all doing? How was your week? I wanted to, now that we're here, I wanted to talk about, transition back. Oh my gosh, white people. All right, so let's see. What else? So this week, I don't know if you noticed, I'm just going to mention it because she was like all petty, so I'm going to petty back. June, Shoe-on-Head, came out in favor of Kyle Rittenhouse, saying, yeah, when you drive across state lines with a gun intending on getting involved in a dispute that you have nothing to do with, when someone chases you and has a paper bag, you can just shoot at them. Because here's what I've learned. It's not easy being green. No, you're completely right, Rory Katz. Being for M4A doesn't make you a good person. Being for M4A doesn't mean you are like a decent human being in your morals when it comes to the suffering of others, and to not punch down. Like June again was like making fun of a black person on Twitter for some reason. I'm like, seriously? Is that what you do with your platform, June? You M4A, oh, everyone deserves healthcare, but also let me just take people who are disadvantaged and punch down at them for the amusement of my white supremacist audience. Trash! Sib, no, you did not tell me about your coffee issue last night. I don't know that I'll be able to read it on air because it'd be a lot to type out, but you can tell me later. All right. Is June Shoe-on-Head? Yes, June is Shoe-on-Head. So she came out in favor of Kyle Rittenhouse this week, calling his self-appointed interference in another state's business self-defense, which, considering the law says that you have to be under, like, some kind of level of personal threat, and the first person he shot had like a plastic bag or something. I'm hoping that that's not going to work with the jury. But let's talk a little bit about what all this kind of taps into, which is for the people who support Kyle Rittenhouse, there is a desire to normalize white violence, especially against dissidents and especially against people of color, because we know like right-wingers rely on violence to enforce, or the threat of violence, to enforce their power structures. I mean, look back at all of the, or just look now at all of the conservative or regressive power systems that still exist and operate in society. And even in America, where you have the overlay of a democracy, right? You've got power and money concentrated. So religion is a great example of how patriarchy is built on violence, right? If you go back to how patriarchy was developed, it becomes clear that at the heart of patriarchy is male violence. And at the heart of white supremacy is white male violence and white women's collaboration, right? Like in terms of systemic stuff, I don't know, maybe there are white Southern belles who are out there, chasing down people who are trying to get to their freedom, their Bill of Rights, during this, before the Civil War, but generally white women conspire with white men, and white women have historically indoctrinated their children into white supremacy to perpetuate the legitimization of the system. Both of those are grounded in violence. And so this idea that I can go to a place and then when someone approaches me and I feel threatened, I can kill them is very much inside that entitlement bubble of white violence. A perfect example of this is that, who's that, the name of the white guy who was convicted of murdering, was it two black teens because they had music playing loud. Stand your ground, loud music. Yeah. Do you remember this? Talk about normalizing white violence. Michael Dunn. Yes. Michael Dunn felt that because black youths in a car were playing loud music and he shouted at them and they shouted back, they didn't respect his whiteness. They didn't respect his maleness. That he was under threat. And so he just opened fire. Now, he was found guilty, but in all honesty, that's never going to bring back the people who were murdered. What he needed was to not feel so entitled to obedience because of his location in society. So this notion of, I think this tweet in particular really summed it up for me, which is why I wanted to talk about it a bit more. And what are you guys talking about in the chat? Yeah, the threat of loud music, exactly. Yeah, and the interrogation, too. If you watch some of these, like I watched another interrogation video about a white man who saw a car with black people in it parked in a disabled spot. And the black driver had parked there and gone into the gas station, convenience store, or whatever. And that white guy decided it was his job to walk up and start policing where the people were parking, started an argument with the black woman who was like in the car, near the car. That got heated. The black man who was driving walked out there, started to approach. There was some sort of like shouting or whatever, but before like any swings or even getting close, the white man pulled out a gun and just literally shot the guy dead in front of a gas station because he felt threatened. Now, white men feeling threatened, and this guy had gun training, right? He's like, oh yeah, I knew if I was laying on the ground, I had to shoot here in order to protect myself. But he had no sense of when he was actually under threat. Because the fact is, when they went and played the tape from the convenience store, he claimed that he was being approached and he was being menaced and this black man was threatening him. That's not at all what happened. Actually, the guy, when he took out the black man, when the white guy took out his gun, took some steps back, and the white guy still felt threatened by him. And we don't talk enough about this, especially in the white community and within ourselves, like within our own groups, about these unconscious racial biases that come up. And so part of this element, there's a whole malignant set of beliefs that are indoctrinated into white kids in America. And it's aimed for white kids, but obviously anyone who's not the target audience, but also buys into the BS, is just gravy. Like, let me put it this way. When it comes to historically like the patriarchy, if you can indoctrinate women, I'll just use a real crude binary for the moment, but if you as the state and parents and religion and through legal structures, you can enforce the idea that women are born to submit and serve, bear children and do unpaid labor, and self-negate and give themselves over and focus always on other people to their own neglect, well, then you don't even have to bother with the violence because the women in those situations are internally incorporating the violence by submitting, by being deferential, by constantly obeying and, like showing submission. So that's the ideal. If you can, if you can indoctrinate those who are not free into being happy about, or at least willing to accept and not resist their roles, well, then it's just easier for you as a what's the word, exploiter. Right? And we have this, there's definitely this notion, and I love okay, let me just read out the tweet first, right? So what Hakeem Jefferson says here is, well, I guess he's replying to himself. So I'll read, the first one first. I wasn't sure if it was a quote tweet or a follow-on tweet, so I just wanted to make sure, so I knew where to start. Said this before, but you can only understand craziness surrounding critical race theory if you understand how absolutely committed so many white people are to a narrative of white racial goodness from beginning to end, and challenges to that narrative are deeply unsettling. That is so succinctly put. It is so well put. Because if you were to, I think, ask the typical white American, hey, should German students learn accurate facts about what happened during the Second World War and what led up to the racial and minority group targeting within that ideology, and should German students be required to understand the dangers of bigotry, anti-Semitism, the dehumanization of others, to the point where you don't feel that their lives are worth defending. I think the average American would the average white American would look back judging Germans on the Holocaust, which was a terrible act. It was 4 years they managed to kill millions, 12 million plus people, right? Not at all think about American history and how many people were murdered in 4 centuries, right? From the 1619 all the way up until, that's about 2 centuries, I guess, 2.5 centuries of exploitation. And that's just in what became America. That's not including the Caribbean islands or anywhere else, right? So they will judge the Germans as needing these kinds of things, as it not being inappropriate or unsettling. And if you were to ask white Americans about 1980s South Africa and apartheid, I think they would again say, yes, this is a case where the government was wrong. It's wrong to be racist. This idea of using the power of the state to racially divide and give preferential treatment to one group over another, that was definitely wrong. And the end of apartheid was a good thing. And white South Africans should learn about their country's history and the white supremacist structures that they put into place, the resistance that Black Africans put up against this white tyranny, and the eventual overturning of apartheid, and the importance of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. When looking at white people outside America, I think most white Americans will have no problem seeing the importance of a people in a country understanding the social relations they find themselves in because of prior historical decisions. Okay? But yet, when it comes to applying that same standard to America, everything goes out the window. Suddenly, the founders might have participated in some slavery and owned slaves and sold slaves and engaged in that entirely immoral thing. But yes, the founding fathers might have passed an immigration bill that was racially exclusive to white European men who were free, not indentured servants. But we don't really want to talk about that, because America is the land of the free, like the land for everybody, as long as you're a white property free man. We don't have the discussion. We don't ask the question in classes. When it came to the Revolutionary War, who benefited? Let's divide up the people on the continent into the groups that they were divided into. At the top of the pyramid, you got the white men. And then under them, in terms of privilege, you have white women. And then there's a really big drop-off. Because white women at least had legal standing in the courts through their husbands, which is not sufficient. But at least they had a path to legal personhood, right, through a white man. But you get underneath Native Americans, they could sort of be on land, work the land, even build some temporary structures or burial grounds. And yet the white Supreme Court decided, because they don't engage with their property the way the white men did in Europe, they don't really own their lands. They just sort of occupy them. They move on top of them. They have a right of residency, but not a right of ownership. Only the white men can properly own things. And then, of course, you have people who are enslaved, men, women, and children, whose conditions are entirely decided by racist tyrants whose only goal is to squeeze as much money out of them as possible. Right? So when we look at the Revolutionary War, there's only one group that really benefited from that. It was the white men. And yet we discuss it as if everybody in America became a little bit freer because of the Revolutionary War. That wasn't the case. It might be the case that like women, I don't think in the colonial period could be taxed. So maybe their businesses maybe could be taxed, but they didn't pay personal income tax because they weren't legally, persons and all that. So maybe there was a fraction of 0.5% of a small amount of women who saw some sort of maybe business rights increase or become a bit more secure in their property ownership that they probably inherited from a father or a husband because they weren't individuals on their own. But the fact is that the Revolutionary War was fought for white men. They're the only ones who benefited for it. And we're not taught that in history. It's all of that class and race limitations that those men placed on everyone else are never discussed when we discuss the history of our country. And so what we get instead, what we actively get as part of white supremacist propaganda, is this notion of white goodness. Yeah, they were slaves, but they were the founding fathers, so they were really good men. Yes, they might have been flawed, but they fought and they gave us the principles of the Enlightenment, and therefore what? We shouldn't talk about Jefferson's exploitation of the people over whom he had control, or how he treated his own kids. I like the fact that, Washington also still had enslaved people by the time he died. I mean, there's this whole, and so it's always the excuses for why genocide and atrocities and human rights violations happened. And that we really need to not talk about those or be honest about those because white kids might feel uncomfortable. Well, if white kids don't feel uncomfortable talking about what Germans did in the Holocaust, and if they don't feel uncomfortable talking about what South Africans did when they had apartheid, what changes? Oh, now it's our white guys. See, when it's their white guys, somehow there's some distance there, and we don't bind our egos and our sense of goodness up with those people. Go, oh, they're Germans, they're not us. Oh, they're South Africans, oh, they're not us. Well, honestly, you're closer in time to, your ancestors are closer in time to, Germans and South Africans than they are to the founding fathers. How are you possibly saying that you can have an objective teaching of history of the facts, including atrocities, for these groups, but not your own? And it's this desire for white people to feel good about themselves. And we're indoctrinated this, we're just think, white people were handed the Homestead Act, and then they also got disproportionately, overwhelmingly benefited from the GI Bill. And then roads were built to their freaking suburbs. Right, and then their property taxes went up, so they had really nice schools because they flew, white flight from the urban areas because the government gave them enough money. And now, after all of these decades of government support and government subsidies and government funding, you have people who say, "Oh, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps." No, that's you. So anyway, all right, I'm gonna check out I'm just gonna read the second part of this, just to be for completeness. And it says, as always, likely multiply determined, I think shifts in narrative reflect and therefore compound feelings of precarity and status loss among white folks. Narrative creation maintenance are tools of the powerful. When others can generate different narratives, it feels like losing power. And I want to come back now. This is such a good insight because when you read James Lindsay's tweets, when you look at the racist myth-informed group's tweets, there is so much going on there that is basically punching down in order to protect their status and their way of life. There's so much, the myth-informed account literally stalks Black people in order to punch down and make fun of them and give that as entertainment for their white supremacist audience. You look at any of these groups who are, or individuals, Crowder, Tim Pool, all this kinds of stuff, what they are particularly worried about is this idea that, dead old white people are being criticized. That is their biggest worry. That some old, dead white people who can't be affected are being criticized for things that are morally wrong and were morally wrong. Slavery was always morally wrong. There was never a time when it was okay I don't care what the norms of the times were. Infanticide was a norm in Roman times. It was wrong. I don't need to, say, I can understand that people were socialized into a morally abhorrent worldview, but that doesn't mean it's not morally abhorrent, right? The same people who excuse slavery, would they excuse infanticide as well? They're probably also anti-choice. So anyway, and so yes, this investment in protecting the reputation of dead white men over the success and prosperity and happiness and eudaimonia of the lives of your fellow citizens today shows that when it comes to these issues, there are white people who actually believe in liberty and justice for all and realize that getting to liberty and justice for all means dismantling the racist structures, attitudes, cultural practices, and norms and views that perpetuate racial differences and racism in institutions. And then there are the white people who are just really super invested in making sure that they feel good about themselves and that they don't want to have the conversation about what America did, what white people in America did to get them as a white person to where they are in society. So I'm going to have to mute myself for a second because I need to cough. If I can find the mute. There it is. Alrighty, Daddy. So what are y'all saying in the chat? I'm having a bit of a rant here. Alright, let's see what y'all gotta say. I think I'm gonna have to up this. I have a new setup with another monitor, and so now I've got things all over the place. I think I mentioned that last time. Alright. I may have confused with the different situation. The white guy was being a loud jerk. Black guy pushed the white guy away. The white guy falls on his butt and pulls a gun out. No, this is a different situation. That doesn't sound familiar, Rory Katz. I think it was some sort of like JCS inspired analysis of an interrogation. And this was definitely about a car being parked in a disabled parking spot while a guy ran in to like grab something, buy something, and the woman he was with and some kids stayed in the car while he did that. And then the shooting happened just like right outside the convenience store. And yeah, I think the white guy did get knocked on his ass. And then he pulled a gun and the black guy stepped back and then the white guy shot him anyway. I think that was the situation. Okie dokie dokie. The Nazi faction in America does not think history is true. Of course they don't want to. Yeah, it's really embarrassing and inconvenient for them if history is true, isn't it? What I was really, I think I've said this at the time, but what really struck me about visiting the Nazi, the NS Museum, I guess you want to say, here in Cologne, is the ways in which I watched how the Nazis in Cologne, in this case study, but I'm sure this was replicated other places, they created a parallel society. So if there was a sports group, they would create a sports group, but with a Nazi membership. And they would create, outdoor camping activities, but with a Nazi angle on it. Or, like you have to be a Nazi to be part of it. And the whole idea was to infiltrate and to normalize Nazism with everything, like wood carving and Nazism, and women's charity events and Nazism, and whatever else. I mean, their whole point was to make their hate indistinguishable from any cultural event that was going on. And, there's just, it seems like in the States now, we're getting to Americas. We're getting the people who are getting information from fascist biased sources, Newsmax, OANN, Fox News, Prager. I wouldn't call them news, but they certainly put a lot of propaganda out there. And that, of course, that whole bubble is built on white fear. And also it's built on like a patriarchal fear, a homophobia, transphobia, misogyny. The three-legged stool of patriarchy. They just love like policing what a real man is. And that, of course, changes depending on their aesthetics. All right, so where was I going with? Oh, just the way that, if you teach people the truth, becomes more difficult for them to manipulate and lie to people, which is why relying on keeping CRT, keeping anything that criticizes white supremacy out of the classroom is so important. Because a genuine, legitimate critique of white supremacy in American history will demonstrate that white supremacy and maintaining white supremacy influenced decisions in the Revolutionary War. It influenced decisions on, like, the Second Amendment. Keeping white power protected and instantiated, is like one of the reasons we went into the Civil War, was to protect that unfair use of the power of the state in order to suppress an entire population for the benefit of white men. And to say that, to make us sound like South Africa, which is what we were, and in a lot of ways we still are, just not in a legal sense, but all of the soft forms of discrimination. To say we were no better than apartheid South Africa is so difficult for some people because their egos are bound up with white goodness. And white goodness is a lie. Okay, so y'all still talking? The A to Decay says, unfortunately, teaching the truth runs directly into conflict with the American exceptionalism ideology. Exactly. Thank you, A to Decay. That's a good point. You say all this, Kristi, but PragerU says our empire was freedom loving. Oh yeah, it'd love to bring more and more freedom to white men. How can we enslave more people of color so white men have more free time? We're going to free up those white men. An honest examination of bad acts makes it hard to sell the idea that the nation is innately and uniquely good. And can I just build on this? Yes, you're hitting it, like completely nailing it, A to the K. You see this also with this Christian American identity. Lorraine Boebert talks about how God chose Israel and America as his chosen people. And within religion, if you go back, look, Moses, the first thing we learn about Moses after he's a baby, other than he's like an overseer, is that he kills a man. And that didn't matter because he was his immorality is completely overlooked. He's still chosen by God because he's a useful instrument. So this link between like being a good person and having God treat you special doesn't exist in the West. Not like in terms of like the Judeo-Christian tradition. Abraham totally like lies and manipulates people in order to pull one over on Pharaoh. He's favored by God. Same thing. Abraham is like basically willing to sacrifice his own kid. So, and of course, King David, right? King David was a complete POS. And yet his murder and his sexual exploitations are like, shrug it off. Men. So there's no actual core of goodness that is required here. As long as you are right with God, you're on the right side, you can do so many bad things. And an honest examination and holding American, the founders to a standard that we would hold anyone else suddenly becomes very uncomfortable. Rory Katzer says, interesting fact, when all the land from Empire loyalists were seized, there was a promise by American Congress to compensate the people who fled to save their lives. It never happened, though. Yeah, it's so funny how willing, like, white people are to pay each other to compensate each other for their property losses. And yet the money to the people who are actually owed for their contributions, never really seems to materialize, or it only briefly materializes and then some other white people take it. I think we can all agree that letting in the Swedes was a bad idea. The Swedes! Was it that Doug Stanhope? Yeah, go hit some... Oh, those are Norwegians. Sorry, go kick some Ouija butt. Yeah, I slipped in a good eudaimonia reference there. All right. Yeah, eudaimonia is a very good word because it captures the essence of something in a more full and complete way than happiness or contentment or living the good life. So, yes, eudaimonia. Definitely knitting. Okay. What kind of like what conservative groups do right now with conservative friendly groups? Oh, I don't know about that. All right. So you guys are being quiet this morning. That's okay. I get it. It's kind of, I'm going on about 4 hours of sleep here. Lot is always, oh God, Lot. Oh God, so many problems with Lot. Lot is always a fun example of someone who meets God's extreme high standards. Yeah, which is obedience, apparently. Like really beyond obedience and keeping, again, the law, which is more obedience, and honoring God, which is more obedience. You know, other than being obedient, there's not much moral code there going on. Lot is always a fun example of someone who meets God's extremely high standards, went on to impregnate both of his daughters, and even listed as one of the great men in the New Testament. Oh, yeah, I mean, well, of course, he impregnated his daughters. He also offered them up for abuse by a mob. Again, like, it's just so repulsive. It is so stomach-turningly repulsive. Can you imagine, like, the women throughout history who've had to listen to that story, and maybe it would occur to them, wow, if I was Lot's daughter, would my dad have done that to me? Because that really shows how little value. I mean, patriarchy can talk about putting women on a pedestal, but it's only a pedestal that is relative to the usefulness to that woman and the cishet man, what she can do for him. It's not putting her on a pedestal because of her own merits. It's her fecundity or her ability to serve or clean or listen or whatever else. You know, oh, she's such a good servant for me, as opposed to respecting people with their own dignity. And that's why patriarchy, it's like the original, before we had proper organized racism, we had a lot of time to practice as a species unfair exploitation and ownership of others through patriarchy. And we cover that up with the word marriage through most of human history. But marriage was really just a property transfer, right? And so you get that foundation and you normalize making people property, well, then it makes it a lot easier to take that next step and go to the tribe or the group next door and view them as property too. Just like they have, like, the woman, like cis woman, has usefulness for you. Other people now, they can work for you. Okay, they can't have your babies, but they can still work for you. So I think, like, patriarchy is the original slavery that we dressed up. And this is, Engels has said not very different things about the way that capitalism harnesses romantic love in order to draw on the unpaid labor of women in both keeping the houses at the time so that the men could go out and work, but also then bearing and rearing the next generation of workers, all for free, under the guise of love. So, interesting critique. There's a hilarious YouTube video where some lunatic shows up at a school board meeting to complain about butt. Yeah, I think we covered her. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. This is the blonde woman who went to the public meeting and was complaining about that. Yeah. I think we covered that on the happy hour. So yeah, I kind of just want to have a little bit of a discussion and unpack this, because I thought that the Hakeem Jefferson comment about white goodness really captured it in a way, and probably, I need to read more. I'm only becoming more aware of, like, the theory and the depth of understanding of racism as a sociological phenomenon and its critiques and how people have engaged with it. Recently, I've focused mostly on political behavior and on, like, the feminist part of that, because, self-interested white person who's a feminist and realize, oh shit, like, well, there goes monetization for this episode. Yeah, white feminism is awful. Like, white feminism is so self-centered. So, all right. Not a blonde woman? I'm pretty sure I saw, all right, I can't believe, all right, this is going to totally get demonetized. All right. Woman, public hearing, analysis. Yeah, that's what I was reading. Yes. All right. Was she not blonde? I had a feeling she was blonde. I'm not going to say the words out loud because I think that's, yeah, is this the one you were thinking? Because she's definitely blondie. He's definitely, or you think about somebody else? Yeah, I think patriarchy is the original sin. And America's original sin is slavery because it was the founding of the entire country. Right, that's like but yeah, patriarchy and the relations of ownership based in violence. Right? That was how patriarchy was instantiated, was that the males used their physical superiority to beat down and kill and suppress and keep in line cis females. And then, of course, by tying in religion, and you get this idea that it's normal for women to take this subservient role and to have the men say, oh, no, you can do this and you can do that. Like, you can be a Vestal Virgin. We'll, like, we'll tokenize a couple of you. And you can have your little hearth goddesses, whatever else. But, you're never going to challenge us for power. And if you're just happy with this little piece of power, or, if you're not, we're just going to beat you, kill you, because we can, because we own you, well, then that's all good. So yeah, definitely starts in what happened twice. She was complaining about a library book. So this is a Texas woman. Now who is this? That's all right. I don't actually do my channel for money. I don't know if you this is not my full-time job. So, it looks like it's going to pop into the window. That was unfortunate, but okay, we can go back maybe. Oh, that didn't work. And, YouTube ain't having none of that. So I might have to find a different way to get to your link. I can probably take that off the screen. All right. Beauty Queen. I don't know how to, can I copy link address? Yes. And then paste. Maybe this will work. I think maybe if I paste the whole... I know, Kevin, no, there's something weird about the way that they treat the, live chat. They handle the links in here, so it's kind of annoying. All right. I'm trying to think. I think that's kind of like, I know it's a little bit short, and it's definitely, I haven't done any Weber, but I kind of just wanted to get this off my chest, and it felt like a longer period of time to unpack some of these ideas than I would have in a happy hour. And to be fair, if I tried to have this conversation in a happy hour, at some point Kevin would interrupt me with some sort of phallic joke and I would lose my train of thought. So I feel a lot of this it's not for your benefit, it's for mine. Like me working out an understanding of how American culture is a white supremacist culture and how I myself was indoctrinated into it. And how it feeds us lies about our goodness and a very, it's like a minimally sufficient, minimal requirements to be not racist, which is like if you're not burning a cross on someone's lawn, if you're not wearing robes, if you don't actively say racist things to somebody's face who's not white, but you drop the N-bomb in private with your white friends and you make racist jokes with your white friends, you can still be not racist because it's just a joke, man. And that is a way, how does this get back to segregation? Right? Segregationism was a whole mindset about making sure that white power, white spaces, that white privilege was maintained. And yeah, the focus of it was the schools. The debate was about the schools. But we lost the segregation debate. America is not desegregated. America is not at all desegregated. And the thing is that people don't care anymore. Like white people don't care enough anymore. Now they're like, we changed the laws. Right? So now that we changed the laws, we're just going to leave in all of the systems, like property taxes for school bases and white flight and everything else. And we're going to say, you can't legally segregate school students now, so fixed it. Right? This desire, collectively, especially on the right, to treat racism, unfairness, bias, as something that was in the past. Whatever, it was like the last generation. Oh my gosh, we passed the Civil Rights Act. It's illegal to discriminate. Why are you still complaining? And this way of moving from legal and formal racism to a soft racism, which is much easier to deny and much harder to go after and unpack and dismantle. It's easy to pass a law. It's relatively easy to pass a law against desegregation. Actually doing the process of desegregation, where we're not funneling kids of color into the most under-resourced education systems, Well, you see, that takes work and money and effort, and that's something that white Republican men and women have no interest in advancing, right? Because it doesn't benefit, how does that benefit them in their white power and their privilege and their ease and their desire to, like, get higher status? Okay, so, I see a couple more people have comments. White people do not want to admit they fear moving into a black neighborhood. Yeah, they are like that. Like, there's so many white people whose idea of diversity is like a room full of white people and then 5 people of color. Yeah, the idea that they could walk into a room and be the minority from time to time. Wow. Then it's like, I'm not even like welcome in my own country. Like, this is everybody's country. You know, like, ask yourself, like, they're not asking, why don't I feel comfortable when I don't see white faces in charge? Why don't I feel comfortable when I don't see a white man running things that I can talk to? What happens inside me when people who've been kept away from power finally get to exercise some? So, yes. Changing laws is easy, changing culture is so... Yeah, and that is the point of CRT. You know, critical race theory says, you know, like Tim Wise, again, I think has the best summary of it. Why is it, in spite of all the progress of on the legal fronts, the civil rights acts, the attempts, the efforts to make discrimination legal, despite all of these legal advancements, do we still see the outcomes of racial disparity? And CRT's answer to that question is, racism was the point. Racism was built into the prison system, into the justice system, into the school systems, right? Because, you know, again, they were built to be segregated. They were funded in segregated ways. And so when you don't understand those systemic structures and those norms, those cultural practices, you're not going to be able to get to the racial outcomes, the disparity in racial outcomes. And the same thing with culture. You know, if we only have people of color in the roles of criminals or support characters to white men, all that does is reinforce this idea of white centrality, the white male centrality of American culture. So, you know, like, instead of showing an America where actual American principles are at work, you just see a white man with a diverse cast of people who are all focused on him and his needs. Way progress! Okay. Oh, don't look at Dave Silverman, said. They're already pretending homophobia is in the past. Yeah, it's amazing how, you know, you get one decision and suddenly like, oh, you can get married. It's all over now. I don't want to hear you complain about the fact that you're being discriminated against. Meanwhile, hate crimes against gay people continue. Okay. All right, y'all. Poe Mama said, I have had white folks say to my face that my adopted black sister will obviously marry black men because they inherently want to go back to their own. That's my slap hand. That's my slap hand getting ready. What the F? Honestly. White people, what is wrong with you sometimes? And, you know, the person who said that, well, oh, I'm not being racist. I'm just saying what I think. No. All right. Yeah, exactly. WTF. WWW. WTF. Really. Okay. I think that's going to be it. I'm going to wrap this up a little bit. Move. Well, hold on a second. I put... Oh, right, there we go. Okay, all right. So, yeah. So can we just get the opinions on the lighting? Because I'm going to be recording more episodes of Trailer Trash or Treasure, which you should go check out. Also, if you want to hear people shout at each other for 12 minutes, you can go check out the Shouty Fest Myth-Informed Better Discourse video mashup that I put up. But, yeah, so I guess the other variable is that I've got this big window. So I'm focused on my lighting now, right? I've been working really hard on this new setup. I bought 5 meters of black velvet. I've set up an entire backdrop behind my bed that I now sleep underneath in order to have this up because I can't build it every single time. I've worked really hard on getting the lighting so that it doesn't bounce off my glasses when I move around. So if you're telling me I look sickly, I need... Yeah, and don't forget to plug... Okay, Pearl, yeah, and go to Twitch and watch our D&D thing. But yeah, all right, so I'm going to do... Shouty Fest was wondrous. I'm glad people enjoyed it. It was a nightmare to edit. I'm going to give you 3 choices. Like orange is when you like the orange. 2 is when you like this middle bit. 3 is when you like the blue light. So orange, yellow, blue. All right, so let's, I'll just do change the light again. All right, here's me in orange. This is orangey, orangey, orange. What else? The other thing I can manipulate, I can drop this on the side. I can get more sunlight in, but that also then depends on what kind of day I have. And right now I've got a cloudy, overcast day. So this is natural sunlight with a orange hue. This is the middle one. Again, I think I look green. Looks cute. I'm glad you like the setup. I really just have to work. Yeah, the color balance. I have to figure out. I think maybe in Cyberlink Power Director, there's a way I can get to my webcam, because I know I did this. I readjusted the setting in my webcam in Power Director, so maybe I can change the color there. And I'm glad you like the setup. I worked really hard on it, you guys. All right, so this is number 2. Number 2, this is the middle in between with direct sunlight. This is what I spend my time doing. You have no idea how much time I spent working on my mic placement and trying to get my mic better. I've got like a whole thing. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You guys, hours. I spent hours. And this is me with the blue light. This is what I normally record under. So, yaddy yaddy. Sunlight is evil. You like orange? Really? Sunlight is nice and cheap. However, it is unreliable. So if I want to record at night, I'm going to have a different lighting thing. The other thing I could do is, I'm not going to black out. I'm sorry, I love y'all, but I'm not going to black out my window in order to have 100% control over my lighting. Orange, no sunlight. All right, so let me go back. See if I really like the orange, huh? All right, so this is me orange, no sunlight. I've got a red filter or a purple filter, but all right. You really like this? This is the one, orange. Yeah, this is I'm really happy. So I want to be honest about where I got this from. This idea, the velvet backdrop, just comes straight out of that chapter. If you ever watch Mike on that chapter, it's a true crime channel, and he's got this beautiful crushed velvet, it feels like, background behind him that he stands in front of, and I was just like, that is perfect. Like, I can definitely do mood lighting as I was doing before. All right, but if you guys really like the orange, yeah, I'll tweak the colors in my editor. I'll also maybe look for color correction. So yeah, I can do all kinds of fun things now with this black background, because one, it's black, so it absorbs light. It's not too harsh, but it also, in this really rich, beautiful way, will allow me to cast shadows all over it as well. I really like it. I'm really, really happy. It's taken me a long time to get this the way I like, but orange, you would like some chicken. Okay. All right. I think the orange, no sunlight, might have just had ahead of the blue. Yeah. Oh, I love Mike 133 in his Irish accent. Oh, and at the end when he does that little wink. Okay, so this is the middle one. Maybe now without light, the middle one between orange and blue is better. So, yeah, he does that little wink at the end, which is so cute. All right. Yeah, thank you guys for your feedback. I do appreciate it. The orange gives a warm cast. All right, good to know. So I was, told by somebody in media that I should go with tungsten lighting and blue lighting, because otherwise you look like a chicken. Try lighting from the backdrop from the bottom. Oh, well, yeah. So, okay, let me explain the restrictions of my setup. Okay, this is my bedroom. I am literally sitting on my bed. Sorry. So what I've got, yeah, all right, here we go. What I've got behind me, I'll just pull my camera off here. So there's my window, you guys can see, right? I've got partial cover there because otherwise I have shades that go up and down. So in front of me, I've got a whole setup here with my soundproofing. right, so I've soundproofed this whole area. There's the computer. There y'all are. So wave to yourselves. Say hi. All right. And then behind me, I basically have a light fixture. This is my only light source in the room. So if I can't light from underneath because I would literally be, like, they would be on my pillows. So I'm kind of going with maximizing the space that I have rather than, like, because this is all I have to work with. So that Spurgleberry Farm is, I have a chair. I have my bed chair right here. This is Dusty Smith. Gave me the recommendation. Freaking brilliant. I sit with my bed chair right here. Okay. My legs are cross-legged. It's all good. Chicken and orange chicken is making me hungry. All right, well, I'll tell you what. I will let you guys go. I'm going to get on with recording some viewer requested, although that's probably not going to come up for a couple episodes yet because I've got a queue of things I want to do. Episodes of Trailer Trash or Treasure. And yeah, thank you for coming by and just listening to me rant about this as I work through some of these ideas myself and understand the linkages between the violence that underpins patriarchy. And not just against women, but also against gay people and trans people. Just that sort of toxic masculine structure that, has organized human societies forever, and white supremacy. So, good old Dusty. All right. Did I get through on Dune? I can pull back the intensity of the light. Let me turn it down a little bit. That's up. So another option. Oh, now I'm really dark. These are my options, y'all. So that's, a little tall now. There we go. There. See, I think that looks terrible because I've got now shadows under my nose, shadows. I mean, I that's fine on my face here, but it's just like, I think that's way too, that's blue. Way too, off. Way too faint. I think my key light needs to definitely be one of the brighter lights. And I can't light my face farther down because of my glasses, so it has to come down. Can we submit trailers? Yeah. So, what I found out is Godzilla people really love their trailers, so I'm going to be doing the Japanese version, I think I said, of the Godzilla trailer, which, because I looked for had to make sure, so I looked for one without subtitles, and then Trans Gamer Girl linked me to one with subtitles, and I inadvertently had to look at part of it to make sure I could see what the subtitles were translating. So yeah, Godzilla, and I'm not blending. Whoa, okay. I can only do so much. I'm sorry. There's only so much I can do with my bedroom, Spurgleberry Farms. I think you know where my head ends. So, I mean, what I could do is point, for instance, use colors that more specifically outline my head. So that's if I go to a green, for instance, that's a bit whiter. Another option would be here. That, for instance, I think I could probably maybe this one on the side here, the one on this side of my head here could maybe be a bit brighter to offset that. So I can look at the angle of the lights, but that's about it. Cave setting. So yeah, I'm going to do some recordings hopefully by Tuesday. The next one will be up. My goal eventually, now that I got my setup, I did my proof of concept video, I did my trial video for a backdrop, and now I think I have it the way I want backdrop. I'm going to try to get up to twice a week and do a Tuesday, Thursday drop for Trailer Trash or Treasure because they're pretty quick and fun and easy to make and get into the routine of that. But I love Godzilla, so it biases my opinion on the trailer. Yeah, and again, turn off all lights again. I don't remember. I don't think I ever turned off all the lights. So if I turn off all the background lights, why not? I mean, you guys, no one's going to watch. This is boring AF. So there's just me with lights on me. Turn off all the lights again. Turn off all background lights. Okay, this is all background lights off. Yada, yada, yada. Yeah, and so the trailer, like I said, the people who didn't, they were like, no, you have to watch the Japanese one, don't look at the American one. It's so much better. And so I'm going to have a look at those. All right, Spurgleberry Farm, you got your wish. You've got no lighting behind me now, just darkness. Waiting for your comment. Get 5 seconds. All right. Well, I'm going to get on with life, get on with recording, and then get on with some D&D. And if you want to watch some silliness, people playing D&D and being silly, you can go ahead and go to Twitch, Rolling Left, which is our channel for a bunch of lefty players who get together once a week and play a bit of D&D. You like just all the no background, no lights in the background. All right, good to know. Good to know. I might mix it up. I might have some with none and some with some. See how it goes. And see who complains in the comments underneath. All right, I'm going to get going. Thank you all for coming by. Thank you all for your comments, your feedback. And thank you, Spurgleberry Farms, everyone else who made a comment on the lighting. Again, it's a work in progress. So eventually I'll settle on something, but I'll bumble around until then. All right, until next time. Hey, there you are. I need to focus on making more eye contact with the camera. Until next time. I've been Kristi. You've been awesome. Thank you so much for stopping by and spending your Sunday with me, giving me your comments and your feedback. So have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay protected, and have a wonderful Sunday wherever it is, whenever it is you are. I've been Kristi. You've been awesome. And now it's this time where I hit this button to end the stream, which you can't see because it's off camera. Okay, I'll catch y'all later.